Okay, welcome to the second Newcomer Tournament, Group C, game number 4. I'm Philothanic with Black Magic, and we have today Terror Incognita, well, I'll just call Terror, Revolting Peasant, Quizipco, and Drop Tables. Now, I notice this colony is a power colony, and there are nukes on the map. What do you think about this map, Black Magic?
So I am looking at this, and there's a great scavenger spot at the southwest over there. You're close enough to 2 low water. You've got a high and a medium right there where Qzipco ends up taking. I probably would have found it outside of the crater, though, because you're going to be really restricted in terms of you can only really get about 2, maybe 3 triangles. I would have preferred to found over where the aluminum was and then ship the carbon over. I'm a little bit concerned about founding that early with the fact that nukes are on the market. That could be pretty difficult unless they can get a really quick lead, and then maybe people will leave them alone.
All right, we have Drop Tables founding as a scientist, which it's a decent science spot. Be nice if he could connect that water up to his base, but
yes. So if Drop Tables moves 1 up, I believe that you can get extremely close to the water. So just shifting up 1 more, I think would probably give you adjacent water, and then you could take advantage of putting out reactors in the future.
Drop Tables going to level 2, securing some aluminum, which decent, but not too far away to ship.
The black market is
I'm actually
online.
pretty surprised right here. I'm a little bit concerned about Revolting Peasants found over there. I would have preferred to take, if you're going to go for an expansive or something like that, I would have preferred to take some of the low iron in the southeast as opposed to where they went. The reason is you don't have very good water access. Eventually that water is going to be really important, and I'd rather just, remember 2 low iron tiles can feed 3 steel mills. Right. So a lot of people overlook they're more concerned with overproducing the iron. You can still use low tiles and they can still be effective.
As you had mentioned, Quizipco, that's a hard one to pronounce. He just got nuked, turning one of his mediums down into a trace, or was that a low? I don't recall. With his carbon there.
Yes, that was a medium tile to a trace. What I would say, if you're in Qzipco's position, there is a single reactor that just happens to be losing money right now, -7. If you're going to build, I don't encourage building a single tile. But if you're going to, build it over top that medium carbon. That way, when you start to get nuked, you can switch things around. You still have carbon. So that's something to take into account when you have nukes on the market. You can still land in, say, an iron patch or a carbon patch, and you can still defend yourself enough if there's a volume of that around. It doesn't have to be a high. It doesn't have to be a medium. That's the way to defend against nukes.
Although I will say on my screen it looks like he is earning 27 on that electrolysis reactor.
Let's see.
Or am I not looking at the right one? No, yes, switching over to him, he's
now it's 20. Now it's 27. Before, when I had hovered over it, it wasn't. Now I can see 27. I wonder if, let's see. I had it over. If you take it as Terror Incognita's view, it comes up as -12. I wonder why. Everybody else it shows as 27.
That
sold.
Must be a bug then.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think about that.
There's really no other way to think about that. Despite that nuke, Quizipco has gone up to level 3. He had his geothermal plant mutinied by by Drop Tables. So that was a good mutiny by Drop Tables there. He's earning some nice power money off of that. We haven't talked about Terra Incognita's found yet, so what do you think of that?
So that's a decent found. I like the adjacent having the adjacent aluminum and your iron right there is fantastic. You got 2 steel mills. I would prefer to get 3 if you can, but it's not too bad. The problem that I see with Terra Incognita's opening is that you put down the power, but it's not going to make, that's a big expensive commitment. It's 120 steel, and it's not helping you advance to the next HQ. What I would like to see instead is not only spreading out all their claims so that EMP or Power Surge can't take them all out. Yeah, so the Power Surge can't take them out. But I would say, as a robot starting off, don't go for the early geothermal unless you found extremely late, because you tend to consume so much power. It's difficult to make money on it, and essentially you're not, that it's kind of a wasted tile for right now. Use use your tiles to make money.
At least wait until level 3 to pick up that geothermal.
Correct. And it's okay if power starts to go up, but you also need to watch what other people are doing. Every single person has a geothermal on the map, plus somebody has a solar panel. So that's a missed opportunity where you can skip that. Everybody else is keeping the power price low for you. You can blaze ahead to HQ3, HQ4, use it to make money instead of going for that power play. So
we have 2 patent labs out, one with Zipco and one with drop tables. Zipco is researching teleportation.
And so is drop tables.
So is drop tables. Now scientists have the advantage on researching patents. Is it 50 or 25% faster?
Oh man, they've changed it a couple of times.
However,
I actually don't remember.
It is faster. As we can see, drop tables is 37 seconds until his patent finishes, so he should win the race outside of any black market shenanigans. Which, if you are Quizipco and you're trying to race patents against a scientist, the spy is cheap. I definitely take a look at what he's doing, because either you decide to mutiny that, freeze it out or something, or you pick a different patent.
And so they use their black market to go for a goon squad to protect their own patent lab. But when you have a patent lab like that against a scientist, you've got to make sure that what they're doing isn't researching the same thing you're doing, because you've just wasted a bunch of time, unfortunately. Water is incredibly important in this game, and so this is where Revolting Peasant having to ship something all the way across the map just to get some of that water is I know they're expansive, but that's a good place where if you found over near the water instead, you gotta look at what's the awkward resource. In this case, water was relatively awkward, and there wasn't a great place for iron. So sometimes it's better to go for those lower resources that are right next to your base.
Perhaps if you found it over to the right of drop tables, there's some low iron on that cliff and a bunch of water, which would keep him from doing that shipping cost. And then aluminum's not too far away in the north, so that might have been a better founding location for him.
So drop tables just got slant drilling, which is fantastic. However, what they did next is a little bit more confusing. So they got slant drilling, and then they went into the chemical refineries when they have perfectly good, you could go into food, you could go into reactors, they're right next to your base, and they're more profitable than the chemical refineries. My problem with the chemical refineries is they're making net of a negative 50, at least this shows me a negative 15. Let me... Does it show...
Once they got the adjacency bonus, it's now plus
Scavenger HQ.
Well, so now it's 0. So here's something to think about. Instead of moving these away from your base, eventually when, let's say, both chemicals crash and the carbon crashes as well, sure, you have teleportation, but they're still away from your base. What I would have liked to see instead is reactors right next to your base that you can switch around. If you really wanted the carbon, well, they can't go for carbon scrubbing, but I think it's, this is a map where you don't necessarily want to go for chemicals because you know that fuel is going to be a big problem just based on people having to ship water long distances.
So that dynamite auction went for 10,000. There is no dynamite on the map. What do you think about that buy by Revolting Peasant?
So that's not too bad for 10,000. They're not in a considerable amount of debt. That's about right for what it should go for. Essentially, you want to save that for an Offworld, and this is something where you can use a spy, make sure that the Offworld is undefended, and then take it out. It's going to be a while till we see an Offworld though, because Oxygen's the best launch. But it's still only 28k, so that's just something to put there. Oh no, and QZipCo disconnected.
Uh-oh.
QZipCo disconnected.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah. I got the ruling from Noxy that if they disconnect before Sol 1 ends, then it's a redo. But other than that, it's a...
Sol 4 here, unfortunately, it's a loss for QZipCo.
So right now, Terra Incognito, the good thing about the configuration there is, they're on HQ5. They don't have to worry about this high fuel cost. They can take advantage of this high fuel cost.
Right.
They're making excellent money on glass, and they were making some pretty good money on farms until they were frozen out. I really like their configuration. They kept everything local. And it's worked out very well for them. Unfortunately, are they losing on power?
They're losing 200, around 200 a second on power.
200, yeah, I thought that.
Geothermal.
And they're already at HQ 5. However, they have 102k, so this is where I like to target somebody like, I'd actually go after somebody like Drop Tables.
Yes, Drop Tables has 68k, and he can... No, he stopped. His patent lab is not doing anything right now. He's not spending any more money on that, so he might be able to defend himself if Terra Incognito went after him, but it doesn't hurt too much to try when you have that much cash on hand.
So if you could, well, unfortunately, it's gonna work out that they're not. This is really a missed opportunity by Drop Tables, unfortunately, because the reactors and the food are so incredibly good, and you have slant drilling, and you could just use the resources right next to your base, and you could be making a killing.
Triangles, easy triangles, making a killing off that instead of those chems as we mentioned earlier. Which are finally making 28 per second, but if he went for a electrolysis reactor, it would be 88 a second on that net revenue. At least, if that's, I don't remember if the science, whether that takes into account the free water or not, so it could be higher.
So right now, if you're Terra Incognito, I would buy up what you need for an Offworld. You're not going to be able to get the buy on Revolting Peasant, unfortunately, so that's kind of a wasted effort, unfortunately. What I would do instead is start buying, so you can sell out there, start to get well, you don't have any way to get a subtle Offworld up.
No.
But this is the chance to go for an Offworld right now. Unfortunately, let's see, as long as they don't locate it on a resource. So you want to locate it. Oh, they're hemorrhaging money for their reactors. Their electrolysis reactors are 61k. So you want to replace those reactors anyway, and that's where you want to put your Offworld. You want to be careful. You don't want to put it on top of a resource, because then somebody can use an underground nuke in order to pop the goon.
Right. And this hemorrhaging just this money is where the new option that came out in the last patch might be useful. I know some of the better players have mixed feelings on the auto turn off, whether that is useful or not. However, at least in Terra Incognito's case, if he had auto turn off turned on, those buildings would turn off and he would get some notifications up here at the top of the screen that they're off, and he'd realize that he's not making any money.
So I am one of those players that said, no, I turned that off immediately. One of the reasons I turned that off is because when you're manipulating resources, what ends up happening is you may be propping up a resource price and still want to produce the the resource that you're limiting. So let's say you're buying into water, and because you want to make sure that food is not very profitable, you're artificially holding the price of water up, so then your farms turn off, so it doesn't consume water. Especially in a 1v1, you don't want that scenario to happen. So I actually turned it off because I found it more of an annoyance than anything else, but your mileage may vary.
Correct.
Overloaded
It seems to be
problems.
something that might be better for new players who aren't used to checking their buildings compulsively for whether they're making money or not. I would like to point out that Terra Incognita, last time we looked at him, he was losing money. He did secure a second geothermal all the way in the north right of the map. So he is just barely breaking even on power with that shipping.
And there's a solar panel coming up too, so...
Yes, one single solar panel by itself. And the second one next to the geothermal, so that should get the adjacency bonus.
I don't like the positioning of that solar panel, because you could be doing something like positioning that solar panel next to your production so that you get bonuses. It doesn't do very much of anything. It gives you a little bit more. It's making 2 a second right now in this solar flare, but it's not really worth having it against away from your base. One thing I would like to point out is that I always like to point out the black market resources that weren't used that should have been. So water is $103 per second. Silicon is 167. Carbon is 131. You have both mules and you have magnetic storms. Now this is something and nukes. Well, scavengers need to be. This is where scavengers need to be purchasing mules. You can take advantage of this. Send a mule out, get something like silicon. Then you don't have to worry about shipping something way across the map. Every time there's a black market cooldown, unfortunately QZipCo had disconnected, but this is where every time there's a black market cooldown, you're always going to have money for something. Use it. Buy something and store it if you don't need it. And this is where you could be blasting someone's silicon. You could be taking a lot of the water out of the air. It actually ended up being a decent. Based on how the resource prices went, this actually ended up being a decent black market, even though it didn't appear to be at first.
Right. Now both Revolting Peasant and Terra Incognita have gone into Offworlds, and the Offworld prices have crept up to pretty good. Food is at 40k a launch now in profit. We mentioned earlier when Revolting Peasant won the auction on Dynamite that he wants to have a spy to look for popping that goon. He does have that spy on Terra Incognita's Offworld, and the Offworld of Terra Incognita is on top. Wait, is that not? It is on top of a low iron, so he could pop that goon with a nuke, and then could either use one of his stored mutinies and try and mutiny that, and if that mutiny fails, he could then blow it up with his dynamite.
You bet. And they also have, let's see. Well, they have a number of ways to pop that, but yeah, that wasn't great placement just based on putting it on the resource. That should have been up where the electrolysis reactor was.
Yes, there are a number of ways, but nukes are the cheapest.
Interesting in terms of who's going after who. So you've got Terra Incognito going after Revolting Peasant going after Drop Tables going after Incognita. It's not exactly how I would see it going.
No, it is a little bit unique, to say the least. Revolting Peasant doesn't have any goons on his offworld, and with Spy so cheap, I'd like to see Terra Incognita spy one of those. And I believe the AI has thinking machines. Terra Incognita has a mutiny stored up, so he could. There we go. There is a mutiny. The mutinies are being thrown down, as I was saying, on Revolting Peasant's Offworld. And Terra Incognita looks like currently has control of it. Yes. Drop Tables has dropped down
Our
into
methods continue to
D debt.
improve.
I'm not entirely sure what that came from. He is making 240 a second on electrolysis, which is really good. He built electronics factories off and to the right, as we were saying earlier, Black Magic. We'd like to have seen him use that slant drilling and maybe have some farms up here in addition to electrolysis reactors. Did we lose you, Black Magic?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you're still there. Good.
Yes, I am still here. So that's yeah, you can see that they're spilling 360 a second just on farms, and unfortunately, unless you keep those things near water resources, Drop Tables is never going to be able to make up what they need to, to prevent from sinking into D debt. I mean, you can't. It's difficult to produce all three with water, with food, and with oxygen and fuel, but. So they're switching over right now, over to food, but they're still going to have, that just means that they're still going to have a problem with oxygen and fuel.
Right. Now, they have teleportation, so they won't be using any fuel costs. So the main thing is that they'll be burning oxygen from their headquarters at 0.4 a second.
Correct.
We have some mutinies going down both of Terra Incognita's Offworlds have been mutinied. Revolting Peasant. Revolting Peasant did mutiny one back.
Interesting to note that Revolting Peasant took the course of paying down they paid down their debt considerably.
Yes.
So here's a good time. Here's a good time to talk about paying down your debt. So if you're in D debt, your key is to get out of D, definitely get out of D, and pay down to at least the C level. If you can get into B, it's the best way that you can do. Don't pay down all of your debt in this case. Somebody already has 5 stock in you, so in this case, you want to keep the cash so that you can make a buy, as opposed to just paying everything down. Oh, and Terra Incognita is out of the game based on Drop Tables. Now, this is an interesting scenario though, because Drop Tables, of course, is in D debt. Sure, you have a higher stock price, but Revolting Peasant has a bunch of money on you.
Correct.
But this is a good example because Revolting Peasant has 260k. Instead of paying all that money down, they could have a whole lot more money that they could use toward finishing the buy on Drop Tables, which ends the game. So what you want to do is pay down to the C level. If it's close enough, pay down to the B level, just so that you don't get those crippling interest ticks, and then keep saving your money.
Now, one good thing that Drop Tables did with those 2 additional claims from his buy is he did start using slant drilling, and now he has a triangle of both farms and electrolysis reactors. So maybe a little bit too little, too late, but at least now that he has the claims, he's using them in the right direction.
There you go. And what I would think about doing, though, I know that people typically don't really like this. I would consider, since you're in D debt, you've got to be careful with that water price. They only have, let's see. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong person. So they do have a little bit of water, which is nice, but I can't imagine that those the chemical refineries are actually making money.
Yes.
They're at 112.
Prices have crept up significantly. Drop Table does have a decent number of optimizations: water, food, oxygen, fuel, silicon chemicals, a hodgepodge of everything, which might explain some of that.
Well, so let's talk about the optimizations that Drop Tables did. So they have water is optimized to 3.
And they're
I
going
don't
for a
necessarily.
perfect, which I disagree
don't
with.
agree with. Yeah, I don't agree with that. In terms of and drop tables ends up taking it, but let's talk about that really quickly, because I think that's an important point. So drop tables is a scientist, and they optimized water. They did a great job in optimizing food. That was good, but oxygen and fuel instead of the water optimization is what you would want to see. You want to keep the water price relatively high to make it awkward for other people to be able to make any money off of those things. So instead of, you can maybe optimize you can maybe optimize it once, but honestly, I would get 2 in oxygen and 2 in fuel before you do anything else. So.
Right, and here we have an example of the new patch with the increased on-world prices. Drop Tables does not have any off-worlds, and he beat out Revolting Peasant with 2 off-worlds, despite the decently high launch prices, 44k profit for food. Well, let's see what Revolting Peasant. Yes, Revolting Peasant still is that same 44k. Yeah, as we can see, looking at the colony, the habitat expanded out a lot, and the colony's using almost 2 food a second, which definitely helps drop tables with that high price.
So when you're a scientist particularly, and you don't necessarily need the water, this may not be intuitive to some newer players. You want to nuke out everybody else's water.
Correct.
You want to make it so awkward for other people to have to use a lot of their tiles, committing it to, and in this case, water was very awkwardly positioned. So you want to do this where you make it very awkward for people to produce life support resources, get them into debt where you can profit off of it, everything, and they can't. So when nukes stay at 6k, they need to be a lot higher. And so you'll see a lot of the advanced players when they use goons, they don't necessarily use them on their base buildings like steel and reactors and things like that. They'll use it on water just to make sure they don't get nuked out. So
let's see, there were 4 nukes purchased and only 2 used in the game, I believe. 3 used in the game, sorry. Revolting Peasant did 2 nukes, one on Terra Incognita, Sol 6, and then another on Drop Tables at Sol 9. I'm really curious what he was nuking a scientist on so late at Sol 9. I did not catch that at the time.
Good question. I didn't notice that either.
And then Drop Tables had the at the beginning of the game, Drop Tables was thinking about the nukes correctly. He nuked Zipco's carbon really early, Sol 1, I believe, from that medium down to a trace. But as you mentioned, he should have continued nuking water across the map. Nukes ended up at 6k, so yes, that's way too low. Now later in the game, Drop Tables had some issues with debt, and I don't recall when in the game he fell into D-debt, so that might explain some of the reason why there were less nukes on the map. Okay, Polishnoxy's asking, can I go back to the main screen, please? I'm assuming she means the overview.
Oh, to see when it is Sol 10 for, in terms of the when it ended?
Oh, perhaps.
Sol 10, 410 for drop tables. That's my guess.
If you could clarify, Noxy, really quick, if that's what you want, otherwise in the overview. Right here, we can see that Revolting Pet Drop Tables, despite not being in food early when we were mentioning, he still made 424k off of it.
Correct. And that was, there were those 3, that triangle of reactors that they got into eventually that ended up carrying. I mean, they're making 386k a second. So once again, even though the chemicals were profitable for a little while, but with the, always take a look at the map and see what are the awkward resources and how can I exploit them. And in that case, the awkward resource was water, where everybody has to ship it way across the map. and that pumps up the fuel price, as well as, people can't take as much water, so that's why water ends at 143.
And we can see he made 217K on chemicals and 424K in water. If those chemicals were food. If those chemicals were food, that food price may easily have been double, and he could have won much sooner.
Yes.
Let's see, anything else that stands out from you at the end charts that you want to talk about before we go into the next game?
Now, drop tables had good optimizations. We talked about what to optimize. It was fantastic that they did so many optimizations, and you want to do the optimizations when your on-world prices are high. So they did a great job in terms of how much they did. They did 12, and they were doing it in the life support resources. So just take those water optimizations off and move them to oxygen and fuel, and it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Revolting Peasant also with the optimizations on food and water. Let's see, how much did Revolting Peasant make on food? He made 132K auto selling food. 602K auto selling water.
Mm-hmm.
So in his case, the optimizations on water, unlike drop tables as a scientist, may have been a good play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One last thing that I want to point out, just because for some reason I'm the only one that subscribes to the Church of the Pleasure Dome. QZipco made 217K for just throwing one little building down.
Yes, at the end of the game, it's making 366 a second.
How would you like to have one tile make you 217K? Make sure you build your pleasure domes.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Especially when everybody is a non-robot, which means those pleasure dome prices are going to be higher.